Okay, guys, sorry about that. I ran out of time in the last recording. This one's going to be a little bit longer just because we're talking about really important elements of your final research argument. So, picking up where we left off, um, once you have decided whether you're going to refute or concede to that counter argument, then you'll want to decide where you're going to put your discussion of counter arguments. So, do you want to have it at the very beginning of your research argument, or do you want to have it at the very end? And both of these options will result in different results. So, it's important to consider your stakeholder audience in this, and to consider what the topic itself is and how controversial it is. So let's talk about some of the organization patterns for academic arguments. So there's the classical argument structure, which has an introduction, you present your position and state the different reasons, and then you summarize opposing views and either refute or concede, and then you conclude your argument. So in this case, your counter argument is pretty much towards the end, just before your conclusion. You can use this organization for most arguments. Now, the reverse classical argument structure actually flips this on its back. So you would introduce your topic, and then you would talk about the opposing views and either refute or concede to those. So your counter argument actually comes in the beginning, and then you would present your position on this issue and the different reasons for that position, and then you would conclude your argument. So this is an argument structure that you would use if your audience has a strong counter-argument to your claim that you think needs to be addressed before they will even listen to your argument. So if you address it immediately, then maybe they won't be thinking about that counter-argument the entire time they're reading your paper. And then there's the point-by-point argument structure. So here we have an introduction. You summarize the opposing view that relates to your point, and then you refute it with evidence that explains why you're refuting it, and then you go to another opposing viewpoint and you refute that again and explain why you're refuting it with evidence and research, and you keep on repeating this, ending with any additional reasons that will support your argument. So, and then you would have your conclusion at the very end. So this kind of organization pattern works well for arguments where your audience has a limited understanding of both sides of the issues, or if the argument is really complex and people might believe the opposite of your claim and you want to sort of just break it down point by point. So the next argument structure is problem or solution. And with this, we start off with an introduction, and then you go on to explain the problem and provide evidence for why this is a problem. So this is pretty similar to your stakeholder proposal that you guys did. You would then explain the solution and provide evidence for that, and show the opposition to your solution. So this is where it gets a little different. You would have to address the counter argument after you've established the problem, explain the solution, and then you'd either refute or concede to the opposing viewpoint and conclude. This kind of argument structure is good if your reasons show that there's a problem and you then present a solution. So what kind of structure could be used? I want you guys to practice on your own. So in a notebook, just read through the different kinds of situations and decide which organizational pattern would be best for each one. So let's say we have David, who researched recycling for his annotated bibliography. He learned that many people believe that recycling is a good thing, but in reality there are actually many disadvantages to recycling. So for this one, he is writing to homeowners who might believe that recycling is good, but no one really knows that much about this issue. So I would say that this is a good structure to use for point by point. So you would present, the opposing viewpoint, and then you would back it up with why it's actually not true that recycling is a good thing. Uh, Next example, we have Hannah, who researched the current issue of overfishing and destruction of coral reefs. She found out that ecotourism can be a good solution to this problem because, as well as saving the reefs, it brings education and development to rural areas. So she's writing this to policymakers in a specific county where coral reefs are being threatened, explaining the benefits of ecotourism. How could Hannah develop her argument appropriately, refuting her counter arguments? So for this one, because she is identifying a problem and she's coming up with a solution to this problem, trying to get her stakeholder to take some kind of action and implement a policy, I would suggest that she use the problem solution organizational format. It seems like it would lend itself really well to this. Then we have Mary, who researched the vote on the legalization of marijuana in California. At that time, voters decided to keep marijuana illegal for general use. Her claim for her argument essay is that voters were right to keep it illegal because of its many detrimental effects. So how should she organize her essay? Whoops. And this might be one of those things that's really controversial. So I would probably do the reverse classical structure where she starts off with the counter argument and then, either concedes to it or refutes it and moves into her position on the issue and supports that with reasons and evidence. So now that we've talked about those different examples, I want you guys to consider which organizational pattern you would think is most effective for your topic and your audience. And then decide what order you're going to present your information. So will the counter argument come first? Will your position come first? Do you need to do something like a claim of policy or solution where you first start off by establishing the problem and then state the solution and then state the counter argument? This is really going to be implemented in your homework that you have for tonight. You will be filling out the A3 worksheet, and it's a little bit redundant, I'll admit that, but the point of the redundancy is that it's having you try on all the different structures we just talked about so that you can see it all laid out and see which one would make your paper ultimately the strongest given your topic and your audience. So make sure that you go through all of those, try them out, and see which one will work best for your issue and your audience. So we can skip that, and we'll skip that because you can see your homework posted on Canvas, but you do want to make sure that you fill out the Preparing for A3 worksheet. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this. I know this one was a little longer, but hopefully you feel like you have a better understanding of how you can organize your research argument and also of how you can address that counter argument. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to email me. Otherwise, go ahead and check out your homework here on Canvas and make sure that you get all of that done.